Good afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's meeting regarding the possible annexation of Wilkinsburg. And we have several invited guests, but I first want to say that we are joined by Councilwoman Strasburger, Councilman Coghill, and Councilman Wilson, and Councilwoman Gross via Zoom. And we may have others join us via Zoom and in person as we can continue on with the meeting, and I'll announce them as they join. With that said, we have invited guests and we're going to begin. I'll say that we're going to be joined by Controller Lamb. He may not be on yet or in here yet, but he will be. He did say that he would come in a little bit late and I did invite him late. So I want to thank him for agreeing to participate. We are joined by Ira Weiss. Ira, do you want to introduce yourself to the public?
Yes, my name is Ira Weiss. I'm an attorney in the city of Pittsburgh, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. And China?
Hello, China Lee, also an attorney in Pittsburgh. Not here as an attorney, just as a resident, long-term resident, landlord and homeowner in Wilkinsburg.
Thank you. And the Wilkinsburg Borough Council members, please take time and introduce each one of yourselves. You have to unmute your mic.
Pamela Macklin, President of Council.
Thank you.
Paige Trice, Vice President. Denise Edwards, Council Member, Council whatever
Pro Tem.
Linda Atkins, Council Member.
Andre Scott, Council Member.
Yvonne Edmonds, Council Member.
Hi, and I'm Ariel Houghton. I'm Council Member for Ward 2.
Thank you.
Ariel Holt. Okay, Ariel.
Ian Petrulli, Council Member from Ward 1.
Do we have any other members?
No, that's 8 out of 9.
Okay, and I will say that we are joined via Zoom by Councilman Lavelle. So thank you to the council members. Thank you for everybody for joining us. We're going to begin, but we were going to begin with Controller Lamb, but since he's going to be on, we'll begin with Ira Weiss from the School District of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a statement which, pardon me, I have a statement which I've submitted to the council through the clerk's office. I will review that statement at this time and then take any questions council may have. My name is Ira Weiss. I reside at 154 North Belfield Avenue in Pittsburgh. I again wish to thank Council President Cale Smith for the opportunity to present to council issues I believe council should consider as it deliberates the question of whether to approve a petition to be placed on the ballot, a referendum for the residents of Wilkinsburg Borough to approve the annexation of the borough to the city of Pittsburgh. I am speaking as a resident of this city and as a lawyer who has represented school districts and municipalities for over 48 years. While I represent the school district of Pittsburgh for many years, my comments do not necessarily reflect the position of the school district, as it has officially taken no position, but my purpose is just to present to council legal issues that I believe are relevant for your consideration as you deliberate this matter. I understand that the petition with the necessary signatures has not yet been presented to the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County for approval. Should that occur, the matter will be presented to council by the court for consideration, and council must either approve or deny the petition within 3 months of court approval. These are the relevant issues I'm presenting for your consideration. First, section 229.1 of the school code provides that if the petition for the annexation is approved by council and it is subsequently approved by referendum in the borough of Wilkinsburg, the Wilkinsburg School District automatically becomes part of the School District of Pittsburgh. This is not a merger. This is not a situation where two willing school districts enter into a merger agreement. Rather, it is the Wilkinsburg School District becoming part of the School District of Pittsburgh. The Pennsylvania Department of Education, which has oversight of school districts and public education, has no role in this process. Second, council should carefully consider the fact that the tax structures of the School District of Pittsburgh and the Wilkinsburg School District are the opposite of each other. The Wilkinsburg Borough School District has among the highest millage rate in Allegheny County. The School District of Pittsburgh has the lowest millage rate in Allegheny County. The School District of Pittsburgh has a 2% earned income tax, 1/4% of which goes to the city under a law enacted during the period of municipal distress for the city. The Wilkinsburg's earned income tax is 1%. Third, should this annexation be approved, the School District of Pittsburgh will become responsible and own all the physical assets of the Wilkinsburg School District, including 3 school buildings. 2 of these buildings are elementary schools, which have been renovated recently and are in use. The third building is a high school, which is in extremely poor condition. It is the condition of this high school and the educational concerns for the high school students which prompted the Pennsylvania Department of Education to facilitate the school districts to enter into an agreement 6 years ago under which the School District of Pittsburgh provides educational services to the grades 7 to 12 students in Wilkinsburg in Pittsburgh School District buildings. Fourth, the School District of Pittsburgh will become responsible for the bonded indebtedness and other indebtedness of the Wilkinsburg School District, which is substantial. Relatively speaking, this will have a negative impact on the Pittsburgh School District's ability to borrow funds as necessary. Fifth, the employees in the Wilkinsburg School District are under various labor agreements, including the teachers who are represented by the Pennsylvania State Education Association. The support employees of Wilkinsburg, that is the paraprofessionals, custodians, and other employees, are also under collective bargaining agreements. The employees in the School District of Pittsburgh are represented by different unions, which will present significant problems as the Wilkinsburg School District employees will become employees of the School District of Pittsburgh. All other contractual obligations of the Wilkinsburg School District, including transportation, food service, photocopying, technology, and others, will become the responsibility of the school district. The transition of these employees and the transitioning of these labor contracts could prove to be a very significant legal issue. Sixth, if the area of the Wilkinsburg School District becomes part of the School District of Pittsburgh, cost of transportation of the School District of Pittsburgh will increase substantially. Under Pennsylvania state law, school districts must provide transportation to non-public school students within each district to the same extent it provides transportation to its own students up to 10 miles beyond the perimeter of the district. For charter school students, transportation must be provided to those students without regard to transportation provided to its own students. This means that any charter school student or non-public school student in the city of Pittsburgh attending schools up to 10 miles beyond the now Wilkinsburg border, since that will be part of the school district, will have to be provided such transportation. In this case, that 10-mile radius could extend almost to Murraysville. That is a significant increase in the radius of transportation Pittsburgh will be responsible for. Currently, transportation represents about 6% of the school district's budget. That is Pittsburgh School District's budget. It is an enormous administrative burden, and both the cost and the burden will increase substantially if this annexation occurs. Finally, and I think importantly, should this annexation occur, the school director regions and the council district regions will have to again be reapportioned. The current reapportionment process is occurring and will be completed in early 2022. The necessity of another reapportionment is time-consuming expensive, and complicated. In conclusion, the purpose of my presentation is to urge council to seriously consider the impact of the points I have presented to you. I urge council to seriously consider these issues as you deliberate this matter when it comes before you. I again wish to thank Council President Cale Smith and members of council for the opportunity of presenting these remarks to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've known you for a very long time and know, that you know what you're talking about and anything when it comes to Pittsburgh Public Schools. So I thank you very much for taking the time here today to share your opinion. And we're going to start with, after you, we're going to have the controller in as soon as he comes. But in the meantime, we're going to go through our, and I think we're going to start with the Wilkinsboro Council President, Pamela Macklin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Pamela Macklin. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting. I would like to defer to other council members first so that we get a point of view, and I can then wrap it up if that's okay with you.
So that's fine with me. Could you call the council members and let them give an opening statement as well? And then our council members will want to ask questions. So after we go through the list of council members, we'll go to China Lee, who's a resident of Wilkinsburg, who I would like to make sure that she has an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Our Vice President, Paige Trice.
Thank you for meeting with us. My name is Paige Trice. I was born and raised in Wilkinsburg, and I'm currently on council. I've seen many changes to my borough. Borough council members have been supportive of the WCDC ever since its onset, and even providing letters of support when requested. The WCDC had a 5-year comprehensive plan to improve our business district, which they have apparently not taken very seriously. And most recently, when asked to give an update on business district progress, the executive director refused to come to council and provide one. I am very disappointed with the WCDC's undermining the borough's elected officials and attempting to deceive our residents by misrepresenting facts regarding an annexation with the city of Pittsburgh. This attempt to blindside our residents with glossy flyers and fake facts, such as lowering taxes, is deceitful. As Mayor Peduto stated this past June, adjustments would be made for the properties reassessed in Wilkinsburg in order to provide the uniformity of taxation. Therefore, because we have a large number of renters, you can believe that our owners of rental properties will not absorb these increases. They will pass these additional fees on to their renters. This annexation with the city would not address the issue of lower taxes as claimed. The city's earned income tax is 3%, ours is 1%. We've been able to maintain a balanced budget and have not had to increase our taxes since 2004. If there were to be an annexation, the city would not be able to provide our residents the services that our borough now provides, such as quick response times to police and ambulance calls. Our first responders know our borough. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I've seen many changes to my borough. This is not one I need to see, and I definitely do not want to see. And thank you.
thank you.
Linda
Linda.
Atkins, sorry.
Linda Atkins, council now.
Thank-
Linda Atkins, I'm on council in Ward 1. And I do want to say, as far as, thank you for the information regarding the schools. And it does kind of go towards what I was saying on Saturday when I spoke, that this whole thing that the CDC, which is a nonprofit and it has no elected officials, this whole thing that they have brought forth overtly and against the will of council has just been a big, massive confusion and misinformation. And people signing this petition, and they're confused. And it's difficult to reel that back because now everyone is confused. So how do we unconfuse our residents and help them to understand what they're signing? So I have a lot of concerns with that. People don't understand what annexation means versus merger. And I was just sent over the weekend a glossy, as Ms. Trice said, a glossy brochure that was sent to one of my residents. And it's still mentioning that this is a merger. So they go on and on with misinformation, scary information. There's a graph on here that shows like 2 lines. You know, this is Wilkinsburg, a straight line, and then, oh, if we merge, it's this line going up. Really, this is your study. So inconveniently, I have not received anything, so I'm off the mailing list. Obviously, they don't want Wilkinsburg Council to have this information because it's misinformation. And it makes me very stressed that our residents are under this duress because they don't understand what's going on. And some of them are signing petitions that they don't understand. And I'm just going to wrap up. I agree with Ms. Trice. I've lived here for a very long time. People love this community. This annexation is huge. It's huge. And it distresses me that it would be done this way based on a lot of misinformation, just kind of sliding right along the truth and untruth. And it's just very distressful to me that our residents are being treated like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Andre Scott.
Good afternoon, Councilman Andre Scott. Personally, as a resident, I've been here 20 plus years. I've seen some highs, some lows, some in between. In my time on council, I have witnessed intentional collaboration, intentional conversation and growth in our leadership. Even if it's not to the optimum level, I've seen us intentionally make steps toward that. I believe any conversation regarding annexation is extremely premature, being that Wilkinsburg and the city is about to go through a leadership shift. New council here, new mayor here, new mayor in the city. I think if this conversation would come up, if necessary, it should be far in the future. I've communicated with a very slim percentage that is remotely in support of an annexation, of a merger. I would say at least 95% of the people I speak with, business-wise, resident-wise, are not informed and are not in support of a merger or annexation. There is a lot of business development going on here, which Councilwoman, Trice and Councilwoman Atkins alluded to as far as the responsibility of the WCDC. It should be more of an assistant arm to our boroughs, being that there are monies being allocated for that, salaries and other things of that nature to assist in building of the borough. And it seems at the same time there are monies allocated to dismantle the borough. So I don't believe that it's fair to anyone, resident-wise, leadership-wise, on either side of the conversation. So if this conversation is necessary, I think it should happen well in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Edmonds?
Yvonne Edmonds, Council. I am completely against this annexation, aka merger. I am a resident, I was a lifelong resident of the city of Pittsburgh, born and raised. I moved out of the city of Pittsburgh, and I've been out here 11 years. Wilkinsburg is a up and growing neighborhood, and as the other 3 council members have stated, the CDC has ridiculed and undermined our council. They have, they've lied to us. They're lying to our residents. These petitions that they're circulating, they're paying these people to go out into the neighborhoods, knock on doors, and the majority of these people that are getting these petitions signed are not Wilkinsburg residents, and therein lies the undermining of our community. Our community has gotten a bad reputation from the news media, especially the news media, and Wilkinsburg is not a high crime area as far as I'm concerned. We're just like any other neighborhood. Things happen and circumstances happen. So therefore, I am against this annexation. And if put on the ballot, my vote will be no. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards?
Thank you. Last winter, council voted to reject all efforts to annex with the city of Pittsburgh by a vote of 7-2. And as you've heard, many council members had a lot of reasons for casting their vote in that direction. The resolution called for many things, including that the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation cease and desist their efforts. And as you've heard, consistent with their behavior, they have not done so. And I think the other thing, insofar as process, council members really did drop out of the sky on us, and there had been no effort to discuss this in a public way with the duly elected officials. Having said that, the annexation with the city of Pittsburgh can be viewed as really the further gentrification. As many of you know, on city council, East Liberty is moving east, and we are smack dab right there. We believe we're very proud of our community. Our community is one of the very few in Pennsylvania where African Americans have political power and have had political power for at least 25 years. And the reason that's significant is we were distressed, as many of you will recall, and it was under the African American elected leadership of our borough that we have stayed out of distress, that as a matter of fact, have a positive fund balance. Also under that leadership, we have been able to experience some growth in business and residents. I'll just mention them. I represent the 3rd Ward, and that is, we share the very, very long border with the city of Pittsburgh. So the city of Pittsburgh, we see your police all the time where I live, which is not always a good idea, by the way. At any rate, the fact that the community here has control, is able to shape its destiny through our elected officials, has had a very positive impact. The politics of Wilkinsburg, by the way, tend to be much less acrimonious than what happens in a city council election or a mayor election in the city of Pittsburgh, and that's because we don't have to raise a whole lot of money to actually become community servants with the full support of our various wards and communities. The biggest issue, I think, is what exactly this annexation is about, and I believe it is to further gentrify and to and to run who's going to benefit. Who's going to benefit moving the whole redevelopment of Pittsburgh east? And as we've seen in the city, simply because of the number of businesses and residents who come to Wilkinsburg, because of the high rents, because of the gentrification, I think that that's what it's about. Our residents will not benefit through having to go find another place to live because they can't afford to live here. So let me end by saying this. We have had forever a very good relationship with the city of Pittsburgh on EMS, on emergency services and everything else, as we do with all of our neighbors of Penn Hills, Swissvale, Chalfont, I'm sure other places.
Edgewood, that maybe you all are as familiar with as we are. And we all get along very well. As you also know, the city of Pittsburgh now picks up our trash and has done so since 2006, and that's worked out for both parties. As to fire, that was in fact a merger. As I said, our residents are very happy, and I'm sure the city is as well. All of our firefighters went in to work for the city of Pittsburgh. Excuse me. Going forward, we want to continue that relationship. I do not believe that an annexation is in the best interest of our residents. And not only that, but we have demonstrated our ability to govern ourselves. Appreciate your time and appreciate you all having us at your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So this is Pamela Macklin. I think there are other council people on the line who may wish to speak. Is that Ian Petrulli?
Sure, I can go. I just wanted to make it noted that I am for the merger, unlike the majority of the council. I really think that this would be a great chance to make Pittsburgh a more diverse community. Wilkinsburg is super diverse, and it really would be a great chance for Pittsburgh to expand its tax base. We have, 14,000 residents still, and expanding the land area and possibility of redevelopment along the Penn Avenue corridor and along the Parkway, and redeveloping the old abandoned houses and blighted properties in the borough is a great chance for Pittsburgh to increase its tax base. I know a lot of people are focusing on the short term, but I think this is more of a long-term vision. This isn't really going to be super easy, and we don't have a lot to look to as far as other places in Pennsylvania that have been doing this, because it hasn't happened for a very long time. I agree with City Council President Cale Smith that ultimately, I think it would be more appropriate for the county and potentially the city to merge. I think the fragmented government in our county is really a burden on all of us taxpayers. And finally, you would be voting city council today, and for Pittsburgh in general, you'd be voting to allow Wilkinsburgers to have the chance to say whether or not they really want this. You're giving them that opportunity, and I don't understand why so many people are afraid to give them that opportunity to voice their opinion on this. My request for city council is, please take this into consideration, of course, and ultimately Wilkinsburgers will decide, and you won't have necessarily a bunch of unhappy residents, because if the majority of the residents of Wilkinsburg do not want that, it'll be shown in the vote, and we won't have the annexation or merger. And yes, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you have any?
Ariel Holton.
Yes, thank you. I'd just also like to say that I also support the merger or the annexation. I think it would be the first step forward in trying to combine our fragmented municipalities and decrease the tax burden on our residents, which I know is heavy for a lot of the people of Wilkinsburg. And I'd just like to second what Councilmember Petrulli said, that I think the best thing at this time is to support the referendum. I think each individual resident and family in Wilkinsburg can determine if this merger or annexation would be beneficial to them. And for many people, I think it would really be beneficial. So I asked Pittsburgh City Council to consider giving us, our residents, this opportunity to drastically improve their lives in many cases. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any other?
This is Pamela Macklin. It's okay now if I speak?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. So you've heard 8 of our council people speaking. I will say, just to inform you that Councilman Petrulli, Councilman Edmonds, and Councilman Scott are no longer leaving council at the end of the year. So that's something to consider. So I speak as the president of council. I will say that I am not for the merger. My reasoning is I've lived in Wilkinsburg 43 years, and it's a wonderful place. And because it's smaller and we have 9 council members, we have greater representation on council. We have normally, as we're a very diverse community, we have 4 or 5 African Americans, 4 or 5 white people, and we have gay and straight people, and male and female. So we have a good representation of our community on council and on our boards and commissions, which Vice President Trice manages. And we ensure that all of our committees are fairly represented by ward, race, and sex, and sexual preference, I should say, too. With that being said, looking from a financial point of view, as Councilman Edwards said, we've been solvent for many years and have not raised taxes in the city, in the borough, and this will continue. In fact, hopefully, in a couple of years, it will go there. We will actually decrease taxes. We have been privileged to get many grants, and our chair of infrastructure and blight, Denise Edwards, has been working diligently on our infrastructure and blight, and we are in one of our last phases, which is, besides sewage, is removing much of the blight. And if you're watching the Sunday paper, you will see that we have been selling houses, and because part of that is because of Zoom. I'm sure that's happening in the city too, that more people bid on houses. And we are having a lot of rebuilding individual family houses in Wilkinsburg, and going back on the tax roll. So much so that even with COVID and the loss of revenue from current taxes and earned income tax, lowering, I should say, loss of revenue from what anticipated, we have collected over $100,000 more, which is a lot for us, in our delinquent taxes, because we'll actually have a pipeline where we're taking individual houses or groups of houses on streets and making them whole. And people are buying them and rebuilding. And many of those people that are doing that are Wilkinsburg residents. So as I say, from a financial point of view, we are in good shape. As you probably know, that we just floated another $2 million in bond issues and refinanced our bonds to a much lower interest rate. So from that perspective, and from our current fund balance, we can see our way clear, at least for 3 years, of improving our revenues and mitigating our expenses. I would say that when I heard that the city police and firefighters through bargaining units were allowed to move out of the city, I said that's what happened to Wilkinsburg in 1995, around there, when the police officers and firefighters were bargained, I presume, to be allowed to move out of Wilkinsburg. And that took, 100 of the best paying jobs and income and housing real estate taxes out of Wilkinsburg. So it saddens me to see that going to happen in the city. I don't know if your contracts give a mileage that they can move to, but that's a concern for us because obviously we really appreciate the fire department there, and we have an outstanding police department. I guess the other concern, I'm not going to get into the CDC again, but I think this rush to make this decision with outgoing people and incoming council representatives, I presume that's true on the city side too. I think you make these decisions not in 6 months or a year or 2 years. If it's something you're looking at, you really need to study it. The governments need to study it. Of course, we don't have and didn't have the revenue to compete with the CDC. I think you've got 250 or 300,000 to take this forward. I'm interested to hear and we are all interested to hear the city council's perspective. And I sincerely hope that you will look to vote down this annexation. And in the future, we may want to consider this, but at this point in time, I think it's very premature. And I would like it to be at the level of the elected officials. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us. And we have Controller Lamb with us, but I'm going to go to China Lee first, and then we're going to go into Controller Lamb. And then council members of Pittsburgh will be able to ask your questions. So thank you all for your patience. There's a lot of guest speakers, but it's important that we have this conversation. China?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam President, for the invitation and for this opportunity to be heard. So as I mentioned before, I'm here as a Wilkinsburg homeowner, landlord, and a longtime resident of Wilkinsburg. As I said on Saturday, my family's owned property in Wilkinsburg since 1978. I was born and raised there, and I am 100% opposed to the annexation. I don't have a lot more to add to what I said on Saturday, but I did want to reiterate that the WCDC has been awarded millions of dollars from the state and also local foundations since they've been in existence in, I believe, 2007 or so, and they failed to complete its mission. Its mission is to revitalize the business district of Wilkinsburg. The reason for that mission is that the business district being revitalized was supposed to attract more people to Wilkinsburg, and they didn't do that. And it would have cultivated growth and progress in the borough and would have helped with our tax base and everything else. But not only did they not do that, the WCDC also has many complaints where they've not worked with our existing businesses. And instead of owning up to the failures and trying to correct the course and help Wilkinsburg, like community development corporations are supposed to do, it's their name. The WCDC now is wanting to focus its efforts on this annexation without any actual regard for what the residents want or what's in their best interest. I'm not sure how long this plan has been in progress, but it's worth noting that in the last 3 years or so, the WCDC has gone behind the backs of Wilkinsburg Council to secure hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding research for an annexation. That money could have been used to help our borough and not fund these clear gentrification efforts. The people of Wilkinsburg will not vote yes on a referendum if it comes to the ballot. We have volunteers standing ready to, go out and fight that if it does come down to this. I'm hoping that you guys would vote no before it even gets that far. The majority of people who spoke up for the annexation at the public hearing on Saturday were associated with the WCDC, whether they were employees, members of the merger committee, developers, or board members. Others included homeowners in specific areas of Wilkinsburg who bought property in Wilkinsburg with the taxes as they are, and they're now complaining the taxes are too high. Residents still don't know what will happen to jobs for our borough employees. Homeowners are still unclear if there will be a reassessment affecting our property taxes. And yet the WCDC is still saying definite answers. They're providing these answers that they're saying are definite, but they're based on speculation and not fact. They've engaged a very small sampling of people to claim that the annexation, which they keep calling a merger repeatedly, they're calling it a merger, which are two different things, is what people want, and it's not accurate. A merger implied that there's mutual assent of two entities coming to the table to discuss coming together, similar to what has happened with our school districts and our fire and trash collection services. Wilkinsburg has been successful in managing its affairs and does not wish to be annexed to the city of Pittsburgh. As the majority of council has, spoke up and said today, Wilkinsburg and Pittsburgh each have blighted properties and both have lost residents in recent years. Wilkinsburg's tax base has decreased, but the borough taxes have not increased since 2004. And our school district taxes also were decreased this year. This is an annexation that has been made an effort by a private nonprofit organization with an agenda. This is not a cry for help from Wilkinsburg residents or Wilkinsburg Council. If there's to be a decision about Wilkinsburg and Pittsburgh coming together, this annexation process is not the way, and this isn't the time, especially not right now with redistricting underway in the city of Pittsburgh. We don't know where our Wilkinsburg residents would go, and most importantly, we don't know what our borough employees, like what they're going to do, and some of them are in our union, which would be unfair. So that's really all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And now we have our controller, Michael Lamb. Thank you, controller, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about this. Let me first say this. I certainly am not going to sit here and suggest what's best for Wilkinsburg. I don't know what's best for Wilkinsburg, and I really think that's up to the people of Wilkinsburg to decide. I'm really more here to talk about what we need to do as a region moving forward with Pittsburgh as a leader of this region, our community. We all know that we suffer significantly from our fragmented system of government, of our local government. And so anytime that we can talk about mutual aid, consolidated services, merger, annexation, all of these are, to me, part of the same conversation, and that is the conversation about making Allegheny County more competitive as a region when it comes to everything from affordable housing to creating jobs and everything in between. We need to do better, and Pittsburgh needs to be a leader there, and we have been a leader there. We led the effort that created the Congress of Neighboring Communities, that we continue to be a key member of and play an important role in working with the communities that touch our city's borders. We in Wilkinsburg, we've worked with Wilkinsburg to provide fire protection, garbage collection, and we now have grade 6 through high school in our Pittsburgh public schools. These have been important steps forward in many ways, not just for Pittsburgh, but for our region, because this is a broader discussion. Again, I'm not going to sit there and suggest what the people of Wilkinsburg should do. That's up to them. But what's on the plate right now in front of council is whether they should even get the chance to make that determination. They got to be willing, that you are basically in a position of allowing them to decide whether or not they want to proceed on this. And so I think it's important for you to consider that and to give them the chance to at least say. I think one of the Wilkinsburg Council people said this earlier, that give them the chance to have that vote. What I will talk about a little bit is about what it means for Pittsburgh, because I think it's meaningful for Pittsburgh, and I think this merger, annexation, whatever language you want to use, would be good for the city of Pittsburgh. We know that we have shrunken population. We know that our latest census numbers put us right around 300,000, which is a key number as to what makes the difference between a large municipality and a small municipality. I would suggest to you that that number is probably lower than what we saw in the census. We know that we've seen some population loss through the pandemic. We see those numbers in public school enrollment that have dropped now below 20,000. That likely is the result of some people moving to other alternative education, whether at-home learning through cyber school or private school. But we also know that a lot of that is because people have left. People have gone to new districts. They've moved to new suburban districts. So we know that we've lost some population even since the time of the census. adding new population to the city is something that we need to do and we need to do desperately. So that's an important factor. Now, in this, I'm talking about the municipal merger, right? So we're talking about population. We're also talking about tax base. We know that right now that the borough of Wilkinsburg has significant tax base, both from a property tax perspective and from a population perspective. And on the property tax perspective, we know that they're in many ways unable to avail themselves to the benefits that they could have because of their tax base. A new tax base for Wilkinsburg, similar to what the city has, would definitely help them on the economic development front. So for those reasons, I think it's a good thing for the municipal merger. The school district merger is a little different because we don't have all the information yet. I can't tell you financially whether or not the school district merger is a good thing or a bad thing because I frankly haven't seen the numbers yet. But I would implore you to hold off on your vote until we see that. And that may be the telling card. That may be the suggestion that, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, or maybe we should. And I would suggest to you that before any decisions are made, that data needs to be received so that we can really see what the Wilkinsburg financial situation of their school district is compared to ours. Remember that the kids in the Wilkinsburg district in grades 6 through high school are already in our system. So we're talking about the remaining part of that district and what's its debt structure, what are its costs, what's its budget, what are its assets. And at this point, I frankly can't comment on that. But it's something that I think we need to know and certainly need to know before we move forward. I do want you to be careful about a couple of things because anytime that these discussions come up, as important as they are in our community, a lot of excuses get thrown out as to why we shouldn't move forward. I've heard some today. We shouldn't move forward because of elections or because of a new mayor. We have a new mayor in the city. We have a new mayor in Wilkinsburg. We should wait. Well, there's an election every 6 months. And we're always going to have an election. So to say we're going to hold this off because of an election is it's just not a good reason. It's just an excuse. It's in many ways a red herring as to why you shouldn't move forward. Reapportionment. We're going to reapportion the city council districts and the school board districts. And I have amazingly high regard for Solicitor Weiss at the school district. But to suggest that we should hold off on this because of reapportionment, that's just not real. We're going to have to reapportion. If it goes forward, you have to reapportion sooner or later. Whether you do it this year, next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you're never going to do this in conjunction with a census because there's just no way to make that schedule work. So there's always going to be an issue about reapportioning when you add population to a municipality or to a school district. And so I would suggest to you that that's not a reason to hold back your vote on this. Some people are saying it's too fast. We've been talking about merging with Wilkinsburg for 40 years. I mean, so to say that all of a sudden this is too fast, I mean, we've already delayed the vote because we thought it was too fast. So now we are going to delay again because it's too fast. I would suggest to you that all of these reasons are not real reasons. The last thing I will suggest to you is this, and it's not so much an excuse, but other people will say, well, there's a better way to do this. And the better way to do this is to merge, for the whole county to merge. Well, let's be honest and realistic about that too. That's not on the table here. That's not going to be on the table for a long time. And if we're going to talk about a pure city and county merger, well, the fact is that doesn't make a lot of sense because the city and the county do completely different things. The county doesn't pick up your garbage. The county, for the most part, doesn't pave your street. The county doesn't provide municipal services. They don't have a fire department. Well, they have one at the airport, but they don't have a real fire department. They have somewhat of a police department, but it's limited. They do not provide municipal services. And to suggest that what we really should be looking at is merging the city and county together, that's not a real conversation. If we want to get serious about having a metropolitan government, hey, I'm ready to have that conversation. But that's not what's on the table today. What's on the table today is whether the people of Wilkinsburg should get the chance to join the city of Pittsburgh, and whether or not the people of Pittsburgh, whether it's not a good deal for the people of Pittsburgh. And what I'm suggesting to you today from the Pittsburgh side of the argument, at least on the municipal level, is that it's a good deal for us. We've proven it already through the fire the service that we provide, through the garbage collection that we provide. We know that the costs associated with this kind of a consolidation, annexation, merger, whatever word you want to use, we know that the tax base that comes to us through this merger is at least equal to the cost of providing municipal services to that borough. Again, I'm not prepared to comment yet on the school district because I haven't seen those numbers yet. But from a municipal perspective, I think it's the right thing to do. At the very least, give Wilkinsburg the chance. Again, this isn't even on your agenda yet. And I would think that between now and when it's actually on your agenda to vote on, we're going to get more information about what it financially means to the school district, along with some hashing out of these other issues. So I would ask you right now, let's keep the conversation rolling. Let's keep talking about what it means for both municipalities and give the people of Wilkinsburg the chance to decide whether they want to do it or not.
I think council, thank you, Control. I think council will decide that, but I think what we'd like to see is numbers that you might have and the analysis that you have done. And so if you have that information that you could email to council so we can look over that, that would be really helpful too. And with that said, we're also joined by Reverend Burgess, who immediately borders Wilkinsburg. So we're going to begin with Reverend Burgess and then Councilwoman. Councilman Burgess, did you have anything you want to add or question? Councilman Burgess, you're muted. Okay, so we're gonna, can we begin then with Councilwoman Gross, because you're next to Councilman Burgess in terms of Wilkinsburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. And Councilman Burgess, if you get there and you want to jump in, just let me know.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Would you like to go now?
Yeah, I won't be very long. I'll be a few sentences. So my major concern, I think, and I said this to anybody publicly and privately, I usually agree with the controller. I think over time, the Wilkinsburg merger makes sense and is probably a good idea. I think the process we're using is unfair. I think to ignore an elected body that are our sister council without working with them, I think a merger, if this was a merger, the way it would happen is both councils would work together to make the merger happen. This process eliminates the voters of the city of Pittsburgh. It empowers our council and ignores their council. And I think that's inherently unfair. And so what I'm going to propose is that the two councils work together over the next year and a half to see if we could come to something that we can agree on, and then we can initiate and work together for a merger. That's what I think. I think to ignore Wilkinsburg Council and Wilkinsburg Mayor as an elected official, if the situation was reversed, I would be highly offended if someone was going to, take away our municipality without us having to say so. And so I'm going to give the same courtesy to Wilkinsburg Council that I would expect for myself. And so I think we need a different process. So I think the outcome may be the same, but the process should be slower, fairer, and different. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. I just want to add to that, that I have been talking about possibly having a city-county task force to work on entire mergers for the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. And so that we're not piecemealing this together, but we're doing this right. With that said, so we can talk about that said, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam President. And I thank all the speakers for being here and for sharing your perspectives. And we also, just for the record, as most of you know, had a public hearing and heard directly from the public. Since then, council members, including myself, have received phone calls and emails from citizens. And we have received some communication from the consultants to the Wilkinsburg CDC. I want to make sure I say that correctly. Actually, maybe it was actually the executive director who sent us, I think I just received it this morning, emails about the studies that they commissioned, that were commissioned and paid for by the Wilkinsburg CDC, about some annexations. Financials, a little bit about, I'm actually looking at the, excuse me, a summary of financial impact. But they are summaries. They are summaries and they're highlights, and they're not satisfactory to me. I don't feel that any of us on council or members of the public have seen hard numbers. And while I heard our city controller say that he was not able now to speak to financial impacts in detail, he spoke about them vaguely. And I don't find that persuasive. And I don't believe that is a good argument for rushing, as opposed to his admonition that we should rush forward without adequate information. I have the opposite opinion. So I think the public deserves to know more about the logistics of how this would happen, and then about the implications of it happening. And what we're hearing now, I think, are a lot of introductory arguments. And what we need to hear next is more of the evidence behind these basically just opening opinions. And so I hope that we do that next. And I would encourage or discourage actually the Wilkinsburg CDC from submitting their petition to the courts. And just a reminder that is the process that is described in the state code around annexation from, I think, 1907. So it's nearly 120-year-old process that hasn't been used much, and certainly in a long time, and is maybe better suited to 1907 Pennsylvania than it is to 2021 Pennsylvania. And certainly we have much confusion and questions from citizens and even from all of us here at the table about what are the implications for our school districts. And perhaps I think that needs to be elucidated in studies that everyone can read and then process to see what their opinions are about that. We have nothing but conjecture about bond structures and debt structures and what annexing Wilkinsburg's debt means and how that would work and what would happen next. No one has addressed or begun to discuss what would happen in annexing the Wilkinsburg Water and Sewer Authority. Is it the Penn Wilkins? So what happens is it's a joint municipal water and sewer authority, I understand. And so what happens if Pittsburgh annexes Wilkinsburg? Let me finish. These are basically rhetorical questions because I don't believe we'll be answering them in this post agenda. And post agendas are designed to increase Pittsburgh City Council's understanding depth at an expert level of issues. That is why we have them. And yet what I'm finding is that I just have more questions than answers after here at this point. We don't have an in-depth analysis of vacant properties, which is being thrown around a lot, right? We know that Wilkinsburg has a significant vacancy rate, right? The city of Pittsburgh has about 140,000 parcels in the city. There's about at least 14,000 of them that we already have under city control because they're abandoned. We're already the agents on the deed. That's nearly 10% of our land mass. And yet, and there's more than that. There's another 14,000 or so that are delinquent. So we're approaching 20%. And I wonder what that percentage is for Wilkinsburg. And again, maybe you have those easy answers because that's just a ratio of like how much vacant property do you have in the numerator and how much total parcels do you have in the denominator. But we don't have an analysis of kind of what that means moving forward in terms of its detrimental impact to either or both municipalities or a positive impact to either or both municipalities. Our land bank, to my knowledge, in 8 years hasn't actually recycled a single property. So yes, we have one on paper that I helped pass introduce the legislation in 2014, and we passed it in 2014, but it's been nearly 8 years since it was created. And then I hear a lot from proponents, including some city residents who own property in Wilkinsburg, about the impact, the positive impact to property owners. Well, we know that Wilkinsburg residents have a very high rate of rentership. And so who are the property owners? I think is a really important question that I would love an analysis for. Who are the property owners in Wilkinsburg? And who are the, and if they stand to benefit, do they need that benefit? You know, if it's mostly wealthy out of town property owners, as opposed to kind of homeowners, resident property owners, then that's a very different picture. And I think that deserves its own analysis. And so I disagree wholeheartedly with our city controller that we should rush headlong without answering any questions. But so I would love for council to continue this kind of conversation and to get answers to these questions, both for the benefit of city residents, for our benefit, and for the residents of Wilkinsburg benefit. These are just the concrete things that I've thought of to date that we don't have answers to. And so if anyone wants to respond to that, please do. But that's really my main points today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Strasburger. Thank you.
I don't think I have much to say other than what's already been stated. I think that, you know, because the Pittsburgh City Council at least is in the midst of a very busy time of year as we finalize our budget. We've had, you know, budget hearings for the last 4 weeks, and to focus on this right now is a little difficult. I think in 2022 we'll have a little bit more bandwidth and space to really dig in. I certainly don't have all the answers to questions that I have either, and I don't think that those here today are equipped to answer my questions either. I think to Councilwoman Gross's point, there's a lot more information that I'd like to have, a lot more numbers I'd like to have before I make a decision. And I think Councilwoman Gross's specific questions are the beginning of my list as well that I've made. So I'd like to continue these conversations. I guess to Controller Lamb, one of the people who has, you know, you have made a decision, your own decision on whether we should move ahead or not. One of the reasons you gave as sort of a red herring or not so great reason to hold off on making a decision or move forward with allowing Wilkinsburg voters to take a vote is that the process is moving too fast. And I understand, you know, we've been talking about this for 40 years. Wilkinsburg CDC has been engaging people since 2013. I'm curious if you have thoughts about this, less the speed, but more the election that we're choosing, that this process is choosing to focus on. the spring primary election versus a fall general election, and whether that makes any difference in your mind as someone who supports this moving forward.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please. That's a direct question to you. I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
First off, as you know, this was originally discussed for the November election of last year. And because of a lot of questions and other concerns, it was withdrawn. I don't think it matters, frankly, which election it's on. I think, in fact, I haven't seen what the Wilkinsburg folks are submitting to the court, and my guess is that it would be for a future election. I don't know that it's specific to a date. I do think there is some logistical issues around having in the spring. Some of you may remember that I led the effort to brought home rule to Allegheny County. And we thought it was important to get that on a spring primary election because of the logistics of getting ready between May and January, rather than just having from November to January to get that done. So if you think back to when we created the current county government, which I was obviously involved in, we thought it was better to have it in the spring primary, so that if it passed, which it did, it would give time for the transition. So, whether that's the consideration of the folks at Wilkinsburg, I don't know, but I would suggest that's probably not a bad idea.
Thank you for answering that. That's helpful. I really will just reiterate what I just said. I will continue to, look forward to these conversations, to meet with those who can provide us with the answers to questions that have been raised today, and continue to have dialogue and learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilman Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President.
Councilman Lavelle one too. Okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. I just have a couple questions. I did hear Mr. Weiss talk about transportation, reaching out as far as to 10 miles from the border. Could you explain it a little further? I missed that, what you were trying to say there.
Yes. The school code requires that school districts transport non-public school students and charter school students who live within the district to their schools within 10 miles of the perimeter of the district. So if the borough of Wilkinsburg becomes part of the city and therefore becomes part of the school district, the 10 miles from the eastern border would be 10 miles from the easternmost border of Wilkinsburg rather than the city. And that means that the radius of transportation will move 10 miles east. Currently, that radius is almost to Monroeville. So that if this annexation proceeds, then the school district of Pittsburgh will be transporting students 10 miles beyond where they are now, which is almost, or is in Murraysville. So my point is, and that is a matter of state school code, we can't change that. So I think that will result in significant increase in transportation costs for the school district. It'll undoubtedly create administrative challenges. And, to the point made by several members of council, the appropriate time, if council requests it, we'll be happy to do an analysis to the extent we can of what exact impact that will have. But there is no question that the radius of transportation will increase 10 miles further, actually more than 10 miles further than it is now, because it covers all of Wilkinsburg plus 10 miles beyond the eastern border.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Appreciate you going over that. I have a question about tax. I've been hearing a lot about the property tax difference. But so from my understanding, there is no payroll tax in Wilkinsburg. Is there someone that can confirm that?
There's a 1% earned income tax. This is Councilman Ian Petroli from Wilkinsburg.
But no payroll tax to the business.
Pamela, can you answer that?
Maybe the controller.
There is no payroll tax in Wilkinsburg.
Okay. So, so there'll be a new tax for their employers. It seems like. Okay, I just wanted to get that clear. You know, I mean, as we move forward, I'm just continuing to form my opinion. I do like to hear some of these questions about, you know, all the different, like there was a question brought up about the water and sewer authority, and it's an interesting question. So I'm gonna hold my, you know, I don't have any other comments.
Thank you.
Just really just form my opinion on this.
Yeah, I think we are. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Councilman Lavelle is no longer with us, correct? So Councilman Calco, do you mind?
No, thank you. First and foremost, I want to welcome the people from Wilkinsburg, the council of people from Wilkinsburg. You know, there's not a conversation that I have had with another council member about this where we don't respect your opinion and take into account everything you have to say. So it's really nice hearing from you. I think it would be a lot better if times were different. You could be here in person. I would prefer that, but it's really nice to actually hear from you. So, you know, this whole situation, when it came up, my vivid memories of Wilkinsburg as a kid was sports. We used to go to Wilkinsburg, and I tell you, you had a great athletic organization, tough kids, and we always enjoyed going out there and playing them. And the community really backed it. And I hope that's still intact for you. I know in some of my neighborhoods it's not. So I hope it didn't continue to decline out there as well. I will tell you that, you know, I kind of did a preliminary vote here, listening to you all speaking, and it sounds like it's about a 6-3 ratio of for and against, 6 against, 3 for. Again, we take in consideration as to how you feel. As to Mr. Burgess, what he said about, you know, the process, you know, I wish we would have had that process when we raised taxes in the city of Pittsburgh with the parks tax, because that was put on a referendum and this body didn't have a say so in that. I just want to add that to the conversation. But I want to really address, you know, we could talk about the school district. We could talk about, you know, the water authority. We could talk about a lot of things, and a lot of these questions will need to be answered. However, I want to talk about the elephant in the room as far as I'm concerned. And the elephant in the room is the property tax. Today in Pittsburgh, if you own a $100,000 home, you're paying roughly $2,300 in property tax. Wilkinsburg, you're paying twice as much, okay? $4,500. And that's on a $100,000 home. Now, I did my own kind of initial survey and, you know, just kind of got the lay of the land. I took a ride through Wilkinsburg. I must have been out there for about 4 or 5 hours, just trying to spot what I feel was municipal properties and private properties and the business district. Okay. Now that tax rate for me just seems like it's almost impossible for somebody to want to invest into their property or to buy there. So I'm very interested to see what home sales are like in Wilkinsburg over the past 4 or 5 years. Now that's one thing in private homes, but when I look at the business district, I was surprised at the vacancy. I was surprised at the vacancy in the business district. I was surprised at the vacancy in the residential area. We also have plenty of it, but per capita, I would say, I think you have 20% vacancy, if I recall reading, which is to me, not even close. I may have, I think 4 or 5% in my district, if that. So again, this is the elephant in the room for me. And when we talk about the business district and I see 4-story buildings that are boarded up, that obviously will go for $1 million plus, I would say. So you're asking somebody to come in there and invest into the business district, whether it be a developer or just a, do-gooder in the neighborhood. For them to purchase a $1 million property, you're now paying $45,000 in taxes per year. Talked to the county executive about this. I've talked to the city controller about this. I feel it's virtually impossible to get development into the Wilkinsburg neighborhood at the current tax rate. So I'm very curious as to see what your answer is to that. Whether you're going back to the state and just trying to, renegotiate that, because I don't think it can survive. I don't think you will flourish with that tax rate. It's just dollars and cents don't add up. Now, to Mr. Weiss, thank you for being here. I know you said it would, look at the cost of the, transportation with the city, what it would add to us. I know that we already share some of that, and if I got my figures right, you said 6%, which would be roughly $6 million worth of taxes from the school district that we put out per year. But I don't think it was factoring in the taxes that, Wilkinsburg puts into their school district. So, so far, everything I've seen points to a neutral, influxation towards, cost. We can't say that for sure. I know there are many unanswered questions, but for me, I looked at it. I have a list of things why it would be beneficial to the city of Pittsburgh, and you heard the controller go over most of those things. Besides geographic adding land to our city, the population is very concerning. When we drop below 300,000 people, it's going to be a lot tougher for us to get state, federal grants and things that help us out. So I tend to want to support it. I would really love to see what the Wilkinsburg residents would say about this. I wish, and I hope somebody can, maybe Mr. Weiss, you can answer this question for me. I wish we can put it on, I wish Wilkinsburg would keep it on the referendum and then we can talk about it. But from what I understand, it cannot go on the referendum there without our approval. Is that correct? Mr. Weiss?
Under the municipal code that Councilwoman Gross referenced, this only goes on the ballot if the council of the city of Pittsburgh approves it.
Mm-hmm. So that's my understanding as well, which disheartening to me. To me, it would make a big difference to see what the residents of Wilkinsburg want to do. Through my travels through Wilkinsburg, I stopped and I was talking to people on their porches and kids on the corners. And I mentioned it to them. They were kind of clueless about the whole thing, but they thought, hey, yeah, we want to be part of Pittsburgh. They thought they were, some of them actually. So in saying that, I really wish we could see what Wilkinsburg wants to do first. However, I would tend to support it if they do decide to put it in front of us. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't have all the answers. I can't say if it's good for Wilkinsburg or Pittsburgh, but my heart tells me it's good for both. And therefore, I would be likely to support. That's it for me, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from members? Okay, so I'm just going to say a few things, and if Councilman Lavelle comes on, please let me know. I've heard a lot here today, and I want to thank the controller for joining us so quickly. I actually asked him yesterday, and he came on today, so I want to thank him for going out of his way to make sure he joined us today. And I apologize for not being more clear about what our what we were looking for in terms of information. So we'll work with him to get some numbers. We'll also work for an independent value analysis of the numbers, as Councilwoman Gross had suggested that we also do. So I want to thank her for that as well. But I heard a lot about the schools, and it's been a very serious issue with our school district. And my sister at Kelly School in Wilkinsburg. So I want to first begin by thanking everyone for joining us, including our members today, because our city council members as well, because we have been very busy. It's budget season. We're also running around our districts doing different events. So I just want to thank everybody for being here, especially during this challenging time of year. But With that said, as I mentioned, my sister, we really do, she taught at Kelly School. I have family and friends in Wilkinsburg. We think very highly of Wilkinsburg. It's not about Wilkinsburg. It's about the process, as Reverend Burgess mentioned. And it's also about what we should be doing and looking at this as a bigger picture. I'm not saying I'm for or against any type of city-county merger. What I'm saying is we should be doing it more methodically. We should be sitting down together with a task force and a team of people looking at what this would look like for every municipality. And if we would actually do a city-county merger, I don't know that there are benefits to doing piecemealing it together the way we are. And by the time we actually feel those benefits, I, for one, probably won't be around. So I just think that, and I mean living, I don't mean just on council, I mean living. So I would really like to make sure that, what we do is done and done right with the best interest of our residents and the people that we serve. But I can't help but think that if we were really serious about mergers, that we would have started in the Southwest. We border the most boroughs. I've said this time and time again, and we're talking about development, the opportunity for development in Wilkinsburg. Well, I actually would like some development southwest of the river. And I would actually like to see some commitment from the people that are committed to this project also say that they are committed to helping southwest of the river and the north side. Everything, we're just adding more land in the East End. And as one of the speakers on Saturday mentioned, that this is just a way to continue Bakery Square and Penn Avenue. And when you use the argument that this is good because we need to increase our Black population, well, that's what gentrified that area in the first place. So that's not really a good argument for me as far as I'm concerned. So I think that what we need to do is come together with a task force on working and looking at mergers for real, and to not worry about elections, as the controller mentioned. Although we do have elections every 6 months, we do not have mayoral elections for both boroughs every 6 months. This is one in 4 years, and with 2 new mayors coming in, I'd like to hear a little bit more from them as well. But when we talk about increasing population, where's losing population is southwest of the river. We've lost a lot. We're having to gain. We're doing the redistricting, and we both have to gain because we lost population, and we're losing population because there is no investment southwest of the river. We're losing population because they feel like their voice is not heard. We're losing population because our schools need to be better, and we need to have more opportunities in those areas. We need to support them as well. So I don't know how this helps southwest of the river, but it seems to me that we're just always an afterthought. This should have been part of the conversation. How will this affect southwest of the river? How will it affect the north side of Pittsburgh? Not just how it's going to affect more East End development and give more people the opportunity to develop and to make money. I want people to make money. I want people to do well in the city. I love development and I want more of it. So I'm not like everybody where you're like, let's stop this and let's do. No, I want it, but I want to do it right. I want to do it in a way that's not going to gentrify an area, but enhance an area. I don't want to do it the way that it was done with my family when they were pushed out of the Hill District. I want to do it in a way that's going to keep people there and help people in their communities. And jobs will come to the residents. That's what I wanted to do. But I think when we talk about, we suffer from a merger, if we don't merge, we also have benefits from our fractured system. We do suffer from our fractured system, but we also have an amazing county with amazing neighborhoods. And I feel like we sometimes don't value what we have right before us. And I really like to find a way that we treasured that, valued that, and helped alleviate the costs associated with running types of things. But I really think that's where a task force is going to be important. So I think it would be really good to talk to our county elected officials and see what we can do there. But for me, I'm not going to prolong this. I do know a lot about what the effects would be on busing. I know that the challenges with busing now in the city of Pittsburgh and how far we take people. I know it's been extremely challenging for the school district. It's costly. They're having a difficult time finding people to do the busing. To me, this is another unfunded mandate, so to speak, for the school district. So I'd like to make sure that we're including our school district and school board members in these conversations. We're not islands here. We don't just get to say what we want to have happen and that's it. I will say that I don't even know if we should put it to a vote, but if we do, it's my understanding that it can't come back up for 5 years. And from my conversations with members, I believe it will not pass. So I think that they're going down a very slippery slope by not engaging and not talking and being, it's the process, the same process we didn't like with the Pittsburgh Parks tax. It's not that we were opposed to a park tax and helping our parks. It was we were opposed to the process. And so I think this is the same thing. And I don't want to do this to another borough. I don't want to do it to our residents. I'm going to be very cautious as we proceed. I will just say that. That's it for me. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Councilman Calkin.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I guess I just really wanted to see if anybody from Wilkinsburg Council has a solution, or what the long-term answer is if there is not an annexation or a merger for their property tax rate.
Does the president want to answer that? Do you feel comfortable answering that? President Macklin? Someone on from Wilkinsburg that wants to answer that? Or is our controller or?
Hello.
Weiss?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Edwards as she's chair of our Infrastructure and Blight Committee.
I would say this, that is what China Lee pointed out earlier. Yes, we had a plan to deal with some of the issues of redevelopment and everything else, but the Community Development Corporation failed in their mission. So we need to kind of go back and rework and figure out. As a matter of fact, the borough itself, without the CDC, expanded the tax base, built new construction, including the grocery store. I think many of the neighborhoods in Pittsburgh do not have a grocery store. And this was under a millage which was higher than it currently is. And as to the magic wand here, I don't think there's a living, breathing elected official anywhere who knows that solution. But I think we're very disappointed that the CDC has failed to help us. That is, redevelopment is one of the things you learn, whether you're borough government or you're in city government, is that the redevelopment is a full-time job needing staff. But unfortunately, if the entity charged with that does not take the community into consideration, and as a matter of fact, defies the community, pursuing its own aims, that's not a solution either. Just let me end by saying that, yes, we cannot provide that number, but it is significant. Significant home sales throughout Wilkinsburg, as well as over the last 3-4 years, but we would be more than happy to supply those figures. And also, I think we just got a new county assessment for doing the county taxes, but at any rate, we will be more than happy to cooperate. But I do believe that if you're asking us for a magic wand, we obviously do not have that, but we do have a plan. Thank you.
I thank you, sir. I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm a man.
I'm sorry.
So who is speaking?
Ma'am, can't see. That's difficulties of Zoom. But yeah, I think it's kind of a shame. It seems like between CDC, or Wilkinsburg Development Corporation, it seems to have become political. However, I know they don't control the tax rate. Controller Lamb, can you add anything to this if you'd like?
And I'll just make a couple comments before we close. But first off, there's no doubt that the tax structure in Wilkinsburg is a problem. It's a problem for development in the community. Anthony, you've had these conversations with some of our county officials and some of our state delegation about the issue and how difficult it is to attract development into Wilkinsburg given the tax structure that's there. But let me say a couple of things about that. First off, let's all be clear that just because you are a renter doesn't mean you're not paying property taxes. It's in your rent, right? So everyone says, well, property tax doesn't matter to people who rent. Well, it does matter because it's part of the cost of the building, and that cost is being passed on to renters. To suggest that somehow property tax doesn't matter to renters. It's just a non-argument. But let me first say to our council president, as a member, as a resident of District 2, I full-heartedly support everything you just said about the need for efforts in the Southwest communities and working with our near suburbs toward a more consolidated approach. And I certainly will support anything you do in that regard. I would tell you though that those efforts are most successful when they are homegrown and come from the municipalities, as we're seeing here in Wilkinsburg. And I would also tell you that when you talk about merger and consolidation and annexation, and the concern you have over loss of neighborhood culture, that just doesn't happen. As you know, you represent some phenomenal neighborhoods here in the Southwest. We all have our own identity. Everyone knows the difference between Mount Washington and Elliott, or Sheridan and Crafton Heights. We all continue to have great neighborhood identity, and that would continue, I believe, under a more consolidated system of government. And again, let me restate, I don't think you should consider this question until you get these questions answered about the Pittsburgh Public Schools. And I agree with you that would require some engagement with our school board members and with Solicitor Weiss and with the new superintendent and with the Wilkinsburg Schools personnel and board as to what it actually means. I'm not prepared to tell you what their financial situation is. I know they have debt. I don't know how significant it is as compared to their assets. But those are basic financial questions that need to be answered before you make a decision on this question. I don't think you should just say, well, we're not going to consider the question. But between now and when the question becomes before you, which is still a good bit of time, I think we need to have those questions answered. And the one thing I will say to you, Councilwoman Smith, I don't agree with you about 5 years. I don't think the 5-year requirement as to when this can come up. And I just go back to my days working for the home rule government and the various referendum that we had through that. There's a 5-year period between votes of a referendum. That's not the same as a 5-year period between discussions or a vote like this. That would be 5 years between when it actually gets on the ballot that you couldn't consider it, not 5 years from when council would consider it. So if this were to fail, that wouldn't stop it from coming up sooner than that, in my opinion.
Thank you. I'm going to respond to that. I'm just going to say that we'll get that opinion from our law department. I believe we've had some conversations about it. So they'll be the ones who will have to fight it. Councilwoman Gross? I'm sorry, were you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you. I don't know how much longer we want to go on. I just wanted to remind members about this question of property taxes and vacant property, because they do go together, right? One of the reasons that our millage in the city even is as high as it is that, again, we have 20% of the properties either abandoned or delinquent in the city of Pittsburgh. And a quite high additional percentage of properties owned or controlled by nonprofit corporations that are not paying taxes on those properties, right? So if all of those properties were paying taxes, then our millage would be lower. And similar for the Pittsburgh School Board. And so I just heard the Wilkinsburg, I think it was the council president, Macklin, saying that they have actually really turned around their vacant property recycling and have been recycled hundreds of properties to Wilkinsburg homeowners that are restoring those properties. And they had a windfall of $100,000 in delinquent taxes. I bet the city of Pittsburgh has not had a $100,000 windfall in delinquent taxes this year. So kudos to Wilkinsburg. And it looks like you're outpacing us in putting properties back on the tax rolls, and which could very well mean that you will be continuing to lower your property taxes, because I think I also heard testimony today that Wilkinsburg has in fact lowered property taxes. So they are on a downward trajectory as opposed to in the city where there's an upward trajectory.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And so we're going to wrap this up. Is there anything else from members? And I'm going to give the Borough Council or Council President an opportunity to make closing remarks. Madam President, you're muted.
So this is Pamela Macklin. I would like to thank the City Council for inviting all of our council members to speak. It's been a thorough discussion. I think we can continue the discussion. Currently, we're obviously, as a majority of council, not in favor of this based on many reasons, but partly because the data that we're receiving is not matching our personal financial information that we have about the borough. So I think it's a good thing to continue a dialogue going forward. And we're interested in looking at obviously the financial condition of Pittsburgh too, particularly the school district. But this has been rather enlightening, and I think it just goes to show we're just a microcosm of the city of Pittsburgh as to the positives and negatives that go on. But we have a very committed council, and I don't know if any other council member would like to make a comment. Go ahead, speak up.
Councilwoman Edmonds here. I'd like to make a comment on something Mr. Wilson mentioned. I believe he mentioned something about the population of the city of Pittsburgh currently being 300,000, which is a good thing, because if it were to drop below, it has to be a certain number in order for these areas to receive funding from the government. My assumption to that is currently we have, 14,000 in Wilkinsburg? Okay, so it seems to me that with your population being 300,000 and you being concerned that it might drop, that this 14,000 people in Wilkinsburg would be able to be a buffer, so to speak, for your funding. In addition, I believe in 2018, you said that, recently you said that you took a ride through Wilkinsburg and along Penn Avenue, and you saw the boarded up, dilapidated home buildings and whatnot along the corridor. In 2018, the WCDC, Tracy Evans, CEO, they received $70 million grant to redo the Penn Avenue corridor. Ms. Evans did come before council. She was asked about the $70 million, could not answer any questions in regards to where that $70 million went. So you're seeing buildings that should have been rehabbed. Therefore, if buildings are not rehabbed, and businesses can't come in. So CDC has basically been a thorn in our side for many years. And then I'm hearing that this initiated in 2013 with the CDC. Is that correct? And this is something that, again, council was not made aware of. So I'm just saying that,
Okay.
so I just have concerns about what the real truth of this, and it's not a merger. Excuse me, I hate to, it's not a merger. This is an annexation.
Okay.
This is a takeover.
And
Merger is.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That up. Thank you for bringing up that there is a difference between the merger and the annexation, especially in terms of the school district. And with that said, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. But I do want to say before we adjourn that I am going to ask you if this council has a statement or something that they'd like for us to post on our website, along with, did receive an email from the CDC with what they think is information we're sharing, and maybe we'll have somebody go over both of those. And if they're both valid and we're able to share in a responsible way, we'll do that. And if this, we'll also post Solicitor Rice's comments as well, so that we want the public to know some of this. And if we can get some numbers, we'll post those too. So we'll just give us a little bit of time to get that all together and to verify the information. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.